Ayutthaya Historical Park contains the ruins of the ancient Ayutthaya Kingdom that existed from 1351 to 1767, centered around the city of Ayutthaya in Siam, or present-day Thailand. It was one of the great powers of Asia at the time. It was destroyed by the Burmese in 1767 when they burned the city to the ground. Ayutthaya became the second Siamese capital after the first capital, Sukhothai, lost its importance. Bangkok became the capital of Siam in 1782. King Utang, also known as King Ramathabodhi I, was the first king of the kingdom Ayutthaya, reigning from 1351 to 1369. The city was named after Ayodhya, who is the hero in a Hindu epic poem. Ayutthaya is located about 80 kilometers or 50 miles north of Bangkok. It's basically an open-air museum. If you only have time to see either Ayutthaya or Sukhothai, I would recommend Ayutthaya for two reasons. First, it's a much easier day trip from Bangkok, and second, the temples and monuments here are much more massive than the ones in Sukhothai. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Sukhothai, and if you have time to see both, but if you only have time to see one, I would choose Ayutthaya. The first temple complex I visited was Wat Yai Chaimongkhon, or Mongkol, translated to Great Monastery of Auspicious Victory, or the Great Temple of Victory. The monastery was constructed by King Utang in 1357 to accommodate the ordained monks who were trained in modern-day Sri Lanka. It is still an active temple where monks live. He proclaimed this site as a royal temple. This monastery was possibly built on an important Khmer temple complex. In 1357, two princes of Ayutthaya died of cholera. King Utang ordered the bodies of both princes to be exhumed, and at the cremation site, a monastery with a holy monument or stupa and a preaching hall be established. He gave the monastery the name Wat Pa Kau, or the Monastery of the Crystal Forest. This temple was greatly renovated in 1592 during the reign of King Naraswin, when the big pagoda was built. It is written that after King Naraswin killed the crown prince of the Burmese kingdom in a fight on an elephant's back, he was furious with his high-ranking soldiers who were too slow to catch up with him during the battle. As a result, those soldiers were subjected to execution, but the royal patriarch asked King Naraswin to spare the soldiers' lives. Thus, the big pagoda was built to symbolize King Naraswin's victory, and the name of Wat Pa Kau was changed to Wat Yai Chaimongkhon, the Great Temple of Victory. In 1767, the temple was sacked by the Burmese and the premises deserted. Stairs lead to the inside of the chiti, where we can see the chamber where the relics were contained. Along the inner wall of the gallery are rows of Buddha images on decorated bases. The originals would have been covered in gold, but today, saffron-colored sashes are used instead. These rows of Buddha statues are newly sculpted in order to replace those which collapsed over time. The statues are all identical. The bases contain the ashes of the dead. Wihan Phra Puta Sayat, or the Vihara of the Reclining Buddha, was constructed during the reign of King Naraswin. A yellow cloth is draped around the huge image that faces east toward the rising sun. The Buddha image was restored in 1965 after being damaged by treasure hunters. In 1979, a new ordination hall was constructed on the old remains, but the original structure remains visible. This next temple is a little further away from the other temples, and you may have to drive here, but Wat Phananchoeng Worawihan is perhaps the most stunning temple I saw here, because of the 19-meter or 62-foot tall giant gilded Buddha that is regarded as one of the most beautiful in Thailand. The temple was originally built in 1324, 27 years before the city of Ayutthaya was officially founded. This Buddhist statue is called Luang Po To. It's regarded as a guardian for mariners. As far as the origins of the temple are concerned, one legend tells the story of a Chinese emperor who gave his daughter away in a prearranged marriage to a prince. The emperor sent the princess on a beautifully decorated boat to Ayutthaya, but when the prince was not there to greet the princess, she was heartbroken and held her breath until she died. The prince was in mourning and ordered a shrine be built for his princess. Another legend from centuries later says that prior to the Burmese destruction of Ayutthaya in 1767, the Buddha shed tears from its eyes to its navel. If you're going to Ayutthaya, This temple is a must-see. Wat Mahathat, Monastery of the Great Relic, is one of Ayutthaya's oldest temples, possibly built by King Boro Maharaja I around 1374. His nephew and successor King Ramaswin expanded the site in 1384. During this time, the temple got its present name. Wat Mahathat was a royal temple and is one of the most significant temples in the history of Ayutthaya, as it housed the Buddha's holy relics. It was the residence of the supreme patriarch or leader of the Thai Buddhist monks. Many important royal ceremonies and celebrations of the Ayutthaya era have been hosted here. When the Ayutthaya Kingdom was destroyed in 1767, Wat Mahathat was severely damaged by fire and was since abandoned. The main prong, or tall tower, once about 46 meters high, has been destroyed twice, most recently in the early 1900s, and has only been partially restored. In 1956, archaeologists discovered a hollow stone pillar within the prong that contained a small stupa with relics, gold and bronze artifacts, and other treasures, which can now be seen in a nearby museum. The temple, which features traditional Khmer architecture, contains the remains of important old buildings, but is perhaps most famous for the sandstone Ayutthaya-style head of the Buddha image in a tree's root. The head of a Buddha statue was placed here decades ago and appears to be overtaken by the roots of a banyan tree, which are entwined around it. How it got here remains a mystery. Interestingly, this Buddha head may be the most photographed object in the entire Ayutthaya complex. One piece of advice: you must not approach the Buddha head standing up. As the signs say, you must sit down in front of the Buddha image, or you might be hearing an earful from security. Wat Ratchaburana is located north of Wat Mahathat. It was founded in 1424 by a king of the Ayutthaya Kingdom and built on the cremation site of his two elder brothers. The two brothers had fought to their deaths in a duel for the royal succession to their father. The third son, Chaimongkhon Phra, became king and built Wat Ratchaburana in honor of his two brothers, with a pagoda dedicated to each of them. It was here that archaeologists discovered 3 levels in a crypt within the tower. The first covered in early Sukhothai era murals and containing tablets from commoners, the second with items from the royal family, including golden tablets, and the third where there would have been relics of the Buddha. In 1957, the temple's crypt was looted of a large number of Buddha images and gold artifacts. The thieves were later caught, but few of the treasures were recovered. Some that were recovered are now housed in the nearby Chaimongkhon Phra Museum, named after the king who built this temple. Subsequent excavations of the crypt have uncovered many more rare Buddha images, which exhibit Khmer and Sukhothai influences. The temple's central prong has undergone restoration, but some of the original stucco work can be seen, featuring many mythical creatures. 4 Sri Lankan stupas surround the main prong. Wat Phra Sanphet, Temple of the Holy Splendid Omniscient, was built on the site of a royal palace and became the grandest temple in the capital. In 1448, King Burma Trail Okanat dedicated the site of the palace to the construction of the temple. This royal palace of the Kingdom of Ayutthaya was used for important royal ceremonies. It was also the royal family's private chapel. Monks had to be invited since no monks lived there, but this is where they would study the teachings of Buddha. The 3 main bell-shaped chidis or stupas would eventually contain the ashes of 3 important kings, Burma Trail Okanat and his 2 sons. 2 of these stupas were built in 1492 by the king's son, King Ramatibodi II. These are the middle stupa and the one on the right. In 1499, a royal assembly hall was built on the palace grounds. Today its foundation and sections of the wall remain. King Ramatibodi II installed a 16-meter-high standing image of Buddha, which was covered in hundreds of pounds of gold, and the pedestal was 8 meters in length. The core of the statue was made of bronze and weighed approximately 64 tons. The statue took more than 3 years to build. This statue was the main object of reverence within the royal chapel. Another chiti was built by the son of Ramatibodi II in 1529 to enshrine his father's ashes. They were put next to the stupas containing the ashes of his grandfather and uncle. In 1742, under King Burmese, the temple was again renovated. Unfortunately, as mentioned before, the city of Ayutthaya, including the temple complexes, were completely destroyed in the Burmese invasion in 1767. The Burmese set the buildings on fire and melted the gold, leaving only its 3 massive stupas standing. All were restored by the Fine Arts Department in 1956. The remaining bronze core was taken to Bangkok, where it was restored and enshrined in a chiti of the Wat Po. Wat Lokkayasutha, or Lokkayasutha Ram, is believed to have been built in the early Ayutthaya period in the 14th century. It is referred to as the Temple of the Reclining Buddha because the highlight is a big reclining Buddha named Phra Buddha Sayat, which is made of brick and covered with plaster. The head is supported by a lotus-based platform. The reclining Buddha has a length of 42 meters and a height of 8 meters and is facing west in the direction of the falling sun. The Buddha seems happy and content, as this image depicts the Buddha at the time of his death as he enters nirvana. The vertical arm is characteristic of reclining images made in the Middle Ayutthaya period after the 16th century. The Buddha is usually wrapped in a brightly colored orange cloth, but not on the day I was there. In front of the Buddha is a small altar where devotees bring offerings. Behind the Buddha are the ruins of 24 large hexagonal pillars, believed to be the ruins of the prayer or assembly hall, which would have been built to support the roof and cover the reclining Buddha. Also behind the Buddha is a large 30-meter-high late Ayutthaya period Khmer-style prang. While there are many more temples you can visit, the 6 temples we did visit are among the most important, and they give you a pretty good idea about the history and architecture in Ayutthaya. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for joining me.